Hey everyone, it's low carb and keto nutrition specialist Amy Berger from 2itnutrition.com, bringing you, as always, keto without the crazy. Why do I bring you keto without the crazy? Because somebody has to. It has gotten pretty crazy out there, so somebody has to be the voice of reason here. Does this shirt look familiar? Do these earrings look familiar? I'm recording a slew of videos today. This I think this is the third video I've done today. It is July 1st, and I have depression, although a better word for what I have is dysthymia. I think it's dysthymiA, dysthymia. And dysthymia is not as severe as clinical depression. It's a little less severe, but it's much more long standing, much more long term. And I've had this for a very long time. And a few days ago it got pretty extreme. It was pretty dark. I'm feeling much better today, thank goodness. And when I feel good, I have to capitalize on that. And so I'm like, let's bang out some videos while I feel good. Let's seize the day. So, and that is also proof right there that keto doesn't fix everything. I wish it did. I wish it did, but it does not. Okay, on to the topic. That's enough about me. Let's talk about boundaries, shall we? And boundaries mean a lot of different things to different people, and they may mean different things depending on the situation. I'm going to talk about boundaries with regard to food. And I think boundaries are like most often spoken about with regard to relationships. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit just to like get your mind into like what are boundaries, and then we'll talk about food. So a boundary, I mean, I'll just give you some examples. Like a boundary that you might have with work is you don't take work calls on weekends. Your boss could call you, the client could call you on a Saturday. You do not take work calls on weekends, period. That's a hard boundary that you do not want people to cross. A boundary with, a spouse or a boyfriend, girlfriend kind of thing could be that you don't have the cell phone, like no phones at the dinner table. We want to just talk. Or that could be like a family boundary, family dinner, no phones at the table. That's a boundary that everybody respects and nobody crosses that, because that's the boundary. There could even be more sort of, what's the word, like specific to your interactions with certain people. Like, boundaries are put up for protection, and usually it's to protect the person who's putting the boundary up, but it can also serve to protect the person on the other side of the boundary, right? Because if you have certain behaviors or actions that you do not like people to do around you or to you, and you put up a boundary against that behavior or action or interaction, not only do you protect your own mental health and like psychic energy, if you want to go there, and to some extent your physical health if it's that severely impacted by the mental health, but by you staying more calm and appreciating the fact that they're respecting this boundary, and you're doing so much better, their life is better off for it, because you are not going to be resentful and angry that they keep doing this really irritating behavior. It could, I'm trying to think of like other examples. I heard some examples on a call today, and I don't want to like use those, even though you don't know who these people are, so I'll use one. And one of the people watches my videos, so she'll recognize her story if she watches this, but you don't know who she is, so she remains anonymous. She was mentioning that a boundary she has with her husband is that she's a very short person like me. She's relatively short. Her husband is very tall. And when they're having a heated discussion or an argument, if you will, he will get like so fired up that he'll stand up and kind of look down on her and like be yelling at her. And she had to explain to him that she doesn't appreciate that. That intimidates her, it scares her, it makes her feel small, it makes her feel like less than. So that's a boundary that she created. When we are arguing, please refrain from standing up and looking down upon me as if I'm a child. Like, let's wait until we're both a little more calm to have a more rational discussion. And I think she said it took a couple of times of her reminding him of this boundary, but now he does respect the boundary. And guess what? They're both better off for it. Both parties are better when one person respects the boundary that has been put up, assuming that the other person respects the other boundaries. So, and this is, this is like, I'm not married, so I don't know how this works, but a lot of people have to put up boundaries with their in-laws, like their mother, okay, the mother-in-law is not allowed to call after 9 p.m. on a weekday, or like, whatever it is. What does this have to do with food? I have done a lot of videos recently on like alcoholic foods, trigger foods, binge foods, that kind of stuff, and the red light type foods. And I have said in most, if not all of those videos, that some people, maybe not all, but some too many people, actually find keto easier to stick to when they are more strict versus less strict, when they put up very clear boundaries, when they have very clear lines that they do not cross. It's just easier to stay on plan. It might not be fun, but it's easier because it's maybe all of their trigger foods are just not even, the trigger foods are outside that boundary. And guess what? If you don't eat a trigger food, you can't binge on a trigger food because you didn't eat it. You can't binge on cookies if you didn't eat even one cookie, because it's the one cookie is what starts the issue, right? So if cookies are not within your boundary, guess what? You're not going to do it because it's just not allowed. And another way to think about boundaries is when, with bowling. I haven't been bowling in years, but I love to bowl. When little kids are first learning to bowl, at least when I was a kid, I don't know what's done now, but when I was little, when little kids were learning to bowl, they would put up these little bumpers in the gutter. Like, I don't know if it was styrofoam or rubber. They would basically block the gutters of the lane so that there was no way that the little kid would get a gutter ball. The ball simply could not go into the gutter. It was going to go all the way down to the pins. Now, they might not get a strike, but they would hit some pins because there was just no other option. The ball could not roll into the gutter. Why? Because there were boundaries put up. What happened? And that's helpful, right? That's helpful for the child. I mean, it's like, it's not helpful in the sense that they're going to hit some pins no matter how they, throw the ball, but, is it throw? I don't even, what term do they use in bowling? I haven't been bowling in so, is it roll, throw? I don't even remember. It's been that long. Anyway, but maybe it does help that child in the sense that it builds that confidence, like, oh, I'm just going to bowl, and like, oh, look, so that's a positive thing. And think about training wheels too. We don't expect little kids to just get on a two-wheel bike and just go and just bike with no problem, balance perfectly and not fall. We give them the training wheels, which we could think of as boundaries. Like, they're not, and it kind of, when you think about it, it is a physical boundary. It's like you're not really going to tip over, although if you really try, you can fall in training wheels, but you've kind of got these little boundaries that keep you, what? On the straight and narrow. They keep you from straying and from wiggling and wobbling. They're very helpful, right? And then once the child really masters that, then the training wheels come off. And another example that maybe is stupid, but I kind of like it because it's about me. I am a writer. I get the majority of my income from freelance writing in the health and nutrition and keto world. And Brevity is not my strong suit. If any of you have ever looked at my blog, I'm sort of notorious for ridiculously long blog posts. I don't know how to write short things. So when I get a writing assignment from a company or whatever I'm doing, I've learned to start asking for very clear guidelines. Give me a word count, even if it's a ballpark. Tell me 800 to 1200 words, right? That's a 400 word wiggle room, but I know hard stop at 1200. So Amy can't write 5,000 words about this because the article has to be, 800 to 1200 words. Or give me a deadline. I am some writers, I'm sure writer personalities and work habits run the gamut. I don't do well with open-ended. It's like, oh, just write an article about that. No, you have to give me a deadline. When do you need it by? Because maybe I'll do it 2 weeks in advance, or maybe I'll do it the night before, but I know that that's my boundary. I can't go past that date. That's the date, that's the boundary. That's when it's due. Or that the boundary, the word count, I can't go over. I need those boundaries in my writing. I absolutely do. So with the food, when I was saying how many people find that it's easier to stick to keto or low carb or whatever your particular approach is when they are more strict, when they have those boundaries. It's paradoxical, sort of, in that it's more restrictive. You would think it would be more difficult to do, but it's not. It is easier because there's not really any question as to, can I have that? Can I have that or can I not? If it's not on your food list, you can't have it. There's no guesswork. There's no internal debate. Like, I personally have spent/wasted, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of hours over the course of my lifetime so far, raging that war. Should I, shouldn't I, can I, can't I do, what do I do? If you have very clear boundaries, you don't even have to ask the question because it's answered for you. The answer is in your boundary. Is that food on your list or not? Now, there's a million different keto food lists out there. I don't know what you're following. I recommend, or I suggest, Dr. Westman's page 4. There is a link to it below in the notes. That's not the only thing that works. You don't have to do that. There's many other plans out there. You can do your own version of page 4. You can start there and say, well, that looks good, but I know that XYZ and ABC foods also work really well for me, so I'm going to do my own customized thing. Whatever you decide on, those are your boundaries. And like I said, there's no guesswork. You don't have to have the war and the debate with yourself because it's pointless to even ask the question because the answer is staring you in the face. Same thing with the amounts. If you want to talk about quantities, if you put up a hard boundary, I don't have more than 1 cup of Greek yogurt a day. Well, guess what? Then when you've had 1 cup, no more for you. It's not like, how much should I have today? How much can I have? Again, the answer, the question is already answered for you because you put up a boundary. And it's entirely up to you what those boundaries are. Can you have 2 tablespoons of cream in your coffee a day and do great? Or can you have 4 or 6 spoonfuls of heavy cream throughout the course of a day if you're having more than 1 coffee? And does that work for you? Can you, I don't even know what. Do you have like legit celiac disease where you really truly cannot have gluten? And then that's easy enough, like no gluten containing products at all. Or can you have some of these low carb wraps and tortillas and breads that do have gluten, but maybe your boundary is, I don't have more than 1 slice of low carb bread per day, or I don't have more than 3 slices of low carb bread per week, whatever you decide on. So But I think it is helpful, at least for some of us, to establish those very clear boundaries. And I like the word boundary better than rule, especially where food is concerned. The rules, what are the rules of this diet? What are the rules? Oh God, it's food. It's not a board game. It's not constitutional law. It's food. There's no rules. There's just what you decide is appropriate, for you. So I think it's important to make those statements. I don't have more than a cup of X per day. I don't have more than blah de blah per week. Or you could even, for some of you that actually need to eat more of something, like, I did that video on keto women who are not eating enough protein. I'll link to that too. If you are thinking that you need to eat more of something, your boundary could be, I eat at least X grams of protein per day. I eat at least 8 servings of Z per week. So it's anything. There's no rules. There's no rules about making your boundaries, but I do think it helps to make them. I really do, because if, like, I actually did a dry June. I didn't have any alcohol throughout the month of June. Those of you who follow me on Twitter know I'm a wine lover. I do love my wine. And I do not think at all that I have any kind of problem with alcohol, but I was drinking too much too often for someone who would like to lose a few pounds. So I decided that I just was going to not drink for all of June. And I actually started a couple of days early, like today's July 1st. I think it's day 34 with no alcohol. So, and yes, I will be reintroducing it into my life. It was just supposed to be the month. But the reason I'm even bringing this up is, and it was easier to do than I thought, easier to do, but I have a group that I declared publicly that I was going to do this and that I wanted them to hold me accountable. So I checked in, here and there, and I said it's day so-and-so and I haven't had a drink. And there were 2 or 3 occasions throughout the month of June that I was so tempted. And I have wine in my apartment. I mean, I have bottles stashed away. Like, that makes me sound like an alcoholic or something. No, I have them like in the closet. They don't go bad. And what was I saying? Oh, like it would have been easy. It would have been easy to just reach for a bottle, but I managed to push through. Why? Because my boundary was no alcohol in June. Period. I'm not drinking in June. There's my boundary. There's no question like, well, maybe I can have 1 glass. Maybe I can just take 1 sip. No. No alcohol. That's the boundary. And I will tell you, though, the accountability really helped. If I did not have public accountability, I probably would have had a little sip here and there. But I didn't want to disappoint the people that I was accountable to. And I wasn't going to lie. I will lie to myself like a champ. I will break promises to myself like a champ. I won't lie to other people. I didn't lie to this group that was holding me accountable. And I didn't want to have to report to them that I had cracked and taken a drink. So setting that hard boundary for myself really helped. And I think writing them down, maybe even saying them out loud, or even if you don't, have it as a declarative statement that you say to yourself. I don't eat blah. I don't eat, I don't know what. Because I'm trying to think of like more of the keto foods that people go, like me with the pork rinds. I don't eat pork rinds. Pork rinds are just not on my food list anymore. Maybe yours is I don't eat keto cookies. I don't eat keto ice cream. That's a good one. Like I don't eat keto ice cream. Whatever it is, make it a declarative sentence, make it unambiguous. Unambiguous, you can't have gray areas. Trigger foods love gray areas because they'll get right in those cracks. Don't have any it's either yes or no. And if it's yes, there is either a boundary around that or there's not. You know, like I don't really care how much chicken I eat in a day or a week or how much pork or beef, but you know, heavy cream, cheese, butter, I got to keep an eye on that stuff. So maybe you do too, maybe you don't, but that's the kind of stuff that you know, if that's a yes food for you, is it an unlimited yes food or does it have to be limited in some way? Is it I would caution against getting this granular and this deep in the weeds, but you could even say, you know, I only eat keto bread on the weekends. Maybe you would like to make keto French toast with sugar-free maple syrup or something, you know, or I only eat keto ice cream on Friday night when I watch a movie with my family. You know, or not. Or not. You don't have to make any boundaries if, you know, not, that's a good point. Not everyone needs boundaries. If you have no problem doing what you want to do and what you intend to do, and you're happy with your results, with either where you are now or with the progress you're making toward getting to where you want to go, don't change anything. Rule one of keto or any other diet for that matter is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're happy with how things are going, don't change a thing. Let me just pause here to see if I'm forgetting anything critical. Because I do have other videos to record while I'm still feeling well. I'm just looking here because I have a little bit of notes for other videos too. That's the boundaries. Anything else? I don't know. I mean, you still have to stick to the boundary. So that's still, I don't have any magic tips, or maybe I do for another video. Like, even if you put up a boundary, okay, now you have to still stay within that boundary. You can say, I don't eat X, or I only eat keto ice cream on Fridays with my family when we watch a movie. And then on Tuesday night, you just have the keto ice cream anyway. So, like, even you have to be willing to stay within that boundary. And the public accountability was huge for me. So maybe that's something you could look into if you are with a group, like either some kind of keto support group, or even if it's not keto, if it's just any type of community group or family group that you're part of. It could even be your best friend. It could be a cousin, whoever, like somebody or some group of somebodies that you check in with and you report to. Tell them how it's going and be honest. Tell them, you know, yes, it's been 2 days and I haven't had my keto brownies and I haven't had, or, you know, I made it 3 days and then on the 4th day I had one. Like, just the accountability was huge. I think that's it for now. Thank you for watching. I hope this is helpful. If it is, if keto without the crazy is helpful, these injections of sanity that I at least try to put out there, please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and feel free to share links far and wide, and I will see you next time.